Am I the butthole for telling my sister to stop bringing up her dead baby? So my 36 female sister, 33 female, Julie, had a baby die of SIDS 6 years ago. I tried to support her in all the ways I could. She's now in a support group with other moms who have lost babies and is getting better and thinking about possibly having or adopting another kid. My other sister, 26 female, Ashley, just had her first baby 3 months ago. All throughout her pregnancy and now while her baby is alive, Julie keeps bringing up that the baby could die of SIDS. Like she'll say things like, "Don't get too attached, you never know." I had my first kid before everything that happened to Julie and I still had a fear of SIDS or that something may go wrong in general. But Ashley is really getting freaked out. My family is potting together, so Julie and I were at Ashley's house yesterday trying to help out with the baby. Julie kept freaking her out and mentioning SIDS to the point where Ashley started crying and saying, "I really just want her to be okay," in reference to her baby. I took her in the other room and tried to calm her down by saying the baby wasn't going to die, but Julie kept yelling in from the other room, "You never know." I was really annoyed, and when we went upstairs, I asked her if maybe she could discuss this with a therapist or her support or even her husband. She just kept saying, "I don't want to give Ashley false hope," and things like that. I asked if she could please stop bringing up the idea of her baby dying in front on Ashley. She got very annoyed and left suddenly. She hasn't said anything to me or anyone else since yesterday. I understand that this is probably triggering for her, but it's not Ashley's job to deal with that, especially when she has a newborn, and I don't know how to help her, so I feel like suggesting she talk to people who do know how to help her isn't that bad, but I do kind of feel like an off for telling her to stop bringing it up. Am I the butthole here? Not the butthole. Of course, the baby could get SIDS. The baby could also get the flu and die. Or she could be in a car accident. That doesn't mean you talk about it all the time. My guess is your older sister is struggling with jealousy. It's not fair this new baby is here and giving her mother joy. And she's trying to hide her jealousy by warning your younger sister, but really, she's just projecting her anger. She needs to stop. It's not fair to anyone. It is so awful your sister lost her baby. It's not fair and I cannot imagine her pain. But that doesn't make it okay to constantly bring everyone else down. I think it's fairly normal for first-time parents to be hyper-anxious about anything baby-related. My husband and I were always asking, is that normal? Should he be doing that? And of course, SIDS is a concern that kept us up many a night. It's an unfortunate possibility. I feel for your older sister, but it's not healthy to bring your younger sister to tears and make her feel like she should be grieving her living child instead of enjoying every moment with her. She needs to talk to someone. I don't think she'll ever come to terms with it. I don't think I could in her shoes, but making her sister possibly put up walls between her child and herself in case she dies isn't fair. You're not the butthole for explaining that. I completely agree with what you have said. I spent my whole pregnancy thinking about what could go wrong. Then got a 1 in 30 chance of Down syndrome, he's fine, which added to the pressure. We fell pregnant again 9 months later, but our P had Edwards syndrome, not compatible with life. Don't think I slept fully for the first 3 years worrying over everything. Original poster is definitely not the butthole here. I have a mixture of congrats and sorry to hear that. Our youngest was born at 34 weeks and in the NICU for weeks. Every day was like living on a knife's edge. Every noise he made when he came home had us rushing into his room. Sure, we had his brother as reference, but every child is unique. My sister just had my nephew, mine are 10 and soon to be 9. And I hold him and freak out inside because it brings back all the "you're so small and fragile" feelings. I would never put that on her and refuse to love on him because I was so scared when my youngest was tiny. We all have our experiences and deal with things differently, but there's a point where even the older sister should see, making the new mom cry, that how she's choosing to manage isn't working and is more detrimental than anything. My baby brother was born premature. He's fine now and insanely smart, but there was a very real chance he wouldn't make it. Even when he went home, there was that one horrible trip to the hospital because he stopped breathing and turned blue. My parents have almost zero pictures of when he was a newborn because of one comment to take as many as possible while you still can, and it made them very upset because he was going to make it. So they decided they didn't need to take photos since they'll have all the time in the world afterwards. They were right, and as I already said, he's perfectly fine now, but sometimes they wish they did take a few newborn photos of him. That's awesome that yes, healthy. My little guy is small still but otherwise perfectly fine. I'll take it. One of my favorite yet kind of pathetic pictures from those first weeks was him in an incubator with the little falconer helmet with the light they use for jaundiced babies. My first daughter was born premature as well. I felt like giving up when they told me she might not make it, but after a little they recovered and it was the best moment of my life. Now she's 3 and I'm so happy to have her. I can tell this post is triggering because my chest is shaking. I never lost any children, but my youngest was born with major kidney issues. She had surgery at 2 days old to place a nephrostomy tube and bag, which she had for 2 months. It was so stressful. There were multiple close calls. Every single temperature over 100 we had to go straight to the ER and get tested for a UTI. She got a super rare bacterial infection while in the PICU. It was hell. I barely remember most of it because I just powered through. While I feel horrible for the sister's loss, I also have to say that suffering is not an excuse to cause harm to others. I hope that the sister can get help, because saying to not get attached and projecting her untapped pain that she is trying to disassociate from via apathy simply isn't healthy for her or anyone. But she is creating potential trauma for the younger sister and that isn't okay. I cannot imagine, if someone I knew got pregnant, saying that they better be careful, sometimes things go wrong. Or bringing up the struggles we had in creating, feeding a cloud fear for someone else. I'm glad original poster said something. I hope the older sister gets help and that the younger sister gets that buffer around her to focus on her newborn and her mental health. It's such a hard time. Especially the first time when everything feels so uncertain. I had 4, the medical issues were with my youngest, and you are so raw and vulnerable. Not the butthole, hope all the sisters get support. Wow, reading about your daughter was so hard to hear. Someone so little and young having to go through so much is terrible. How is she doing now, if I may ask? I feel you. My son was born at 26 weeks and was in the NICU for almost 3 months. I got the Owlet monitor. It monitors heart rate and breathing, took infant CPR while he was in the hospital, and when he came home I slept on his room and I was still terrified of SIDS. He's a healthy almost 2-year-old now who is a little behind on speech but otherwise perfect. Aside from the fact he doesn't want to go to bed right now, I feel bad for the sister. She must have PTSD and really needs to work through her grief. I agree she shouldn't be projecting that on her sister and should probably give her some space until she can work through that. I am so sorry for your loss. I've never heard of anyone else losing a baby from Edwards' syndrome. My mother lost my baby brother from it even though it was only mosaic. I still visit his grave whenever I am back in my hometown. I used to sit in the rocking chair with my mom after and brush her hair while she just cried and begged my dad to make the sun come out. She also has seasonal depression and it was a crazy gloomy/rainy spring that year. Internet hug to you. Even if the baby was actively dying of something with no cure, the parents would not want to spend every moment they could with their child alive thinking about losing the child. Your older sister may be facing her own fear of the baby dying, but she needs to face that fear away from the parents. 100%, this. And what kind of advice is, don't get attached. Like you said, even if the baby had a terminal illness, that would be terrible advice and every parent would want to experience as much loving connection as possible with that little baby before they passed. It's just so inappropriate and cold. Especially since new moms are so at risk for depression and anxiety. I would have absolutely lost my mind when my baby was a newborn if someone I was close to kept bringing up SIDS. Especially if I had seen firsthand that happen in my own family. Thankfully, it's never happened to anyone I know personally and I still nearly fell apart with anxiety. Op's sister needs therapy and to stay away for everyone's sake if she can't handle her trauma. I think the sister is way out of line here. Some level of anxiety after birth is normal, and the sister contributing to that to the point of tears for a new mom is absolutely disgusting. If Julia can't control herself, she shouldn't be around the new parents. The loss of a child, especially to something as inexplicable as SIDS, is a devastation I can't imagine. Grief, however, is no excuse to be a horrible person. I agree with everything you have said here. Julie is not safe to be around her sister. She has already put her on edge and started paranoia creeping in. Yes, awareness is important, but she's basically telling her sister to not get attached to her baby in case it dies. WTF. Op, you are not the butthole. Please be there for your younger sister. Her mind will be all over the place and she will be in dire need of reassurance. This. The thought of SIDS kept me up for months on end. No sleep, crying my eyes out, checking literally every 10 to 15 minutes. It drove me insane. It's very scary. But I would never do this to anyone. I remember checking our kids quite a bit when they were babies to make sure they were still breathing or hadn't rolled onto their stomach somehow. I think every mother is wired this for when their kids are small. I slept sounder once the SIDS window closed than I'd known was possible. So did I, but I still have to check my 5-year-old is breathing before I go to bed. I think I'll be doing that until he moves out, crying face. I'm 44 and my retired mother ended up moving in with me. She still checks that I'm breathing. I check my kids and my husband. The fear just never goes away. This exactly. Life holy wow. My kids are both technically outside of SIDS danger, 10-month and 4-year-old, but I still check on them every night. To hear my sister telling me every time I'm near her to not get attached to my baby or watch out, you never know, would have me a ball of anxious nerves so bad I don't think I could leave my children to themselves for even a second. I turn into the helicopter mom from hell. Original poster really, not the butthole. Your big sis is getting help, but she needs to tell her therapist exactly what she's doing. It's so unhealthy for her and for your little sister that she won't stop telling your little sister that her baby could die any moment. This is it. Sister is still struggling, which I totally get, but she's dealing with it by purposely ruining other sisters' happiness on purpose out of jealousy. To be fair, maybe she doesn't even realize herself that that's what she's doing, but she needs to talk to a therapist about it. I can imagine her pain, I lived it, and she is way out of line here. Yes, crap happens, doesn't mean that same crap will happen to another mother in her life. Not the butthole op. Really keep telling her to keep those comments and her anger in group or individual therapy. It's not healthy for her to project like this, and it's absolutely not healthy targeting at a new mother. She's going to cause irreparable harm to the bond between her and her baby because of this fear-mongering. Also, what if Ashley has PPD? Her sister can make it worse by keeping to bring up SIDS. 100%, not the butthole. As a first-time mom with a little bub with growth restrictions in utero and unable to breastfeed when she was first born, I was constantly worried about SIDS. I'm pretty sure I had mega PPA to begin with. If someone, especially family, kept telling me not to get too attached to my baby because she was going to die, Lord knows what I would have done to myself, let alone my ability to healthily look after my baby. Older sister needs to move on and stop freaking out a new mom. I'm surprised it took 3 months for original poster to say it. Why hasn't younger sister's partner stepped in to defend her also? Assuming he is involved anyways. Sister needs counseling stat. Her making her other sister so scared is cruel. She needs to deal with the loss of her child with a professional, not just a support group, and stay away from her sister until she does. Right? We could all die for any reason at any time. You never know. But, we're also fine right now, and we can't live our lives waiting to die. Something my therapist has told me recently that really helped me is that having low expectations doesn't actually help you feel better or less worse if things don't turn out well. You just get hurt twice, first by denying yourself hope and then again, when things go bad. Yes, it's total projection of her own resentment, I agree, and understandable to a point. She urgently needs to recognize her own issues and distance herself from younger sister until she gets her head straight about this. I came on here thinking there was no way of saying not the butthole to that tagline, but absolutely not the butthole 100%. It is helping absolutely no one to keep bringing up all of those horrendous possibilities. I remember how shell-shocked and vulnerable I was when my daughter was born, exactly 11 years ago today in fact, and it would have utterly broken me to have had anyone putting those thoughts into my head. I actually think it's dangerous for a new mother to be subjected to that. Well done for standing up to your sister. It's difficult to be honest when it's a delicate situation and when you know it will sting that much. Agreed, not the butthole. What Op's sister is doing is really cruel. Maybe not even jealousy but also grief. I feel bad for her, but it's a lot to absorb constantly. Not the butthole. I kind of think you've put yourself down with the title. You haven't really just told your sister to stop talking about her dead child, you asked her stop talking about SIDS for your other sister's sake. Having a child should be a good time and shouldn't be riddled by someone who keeps reminding you of all the ways your kid could die. Right. A few people in my family have lost babies, stillborn, birth defects, etc., and they have never been anything but happy for others. Ruining someone else's pregnancy/new child isn't helping her move on either. And even if you aren't happy for pregnant people/new parents after the loss of a child, which is an absolutely normal reaction when you are grieving, you take a break from them. You do not torture them by putting it in their head that their baby is going to die. I completely agree. I had a daughter and my mom was supportive to the extent she can be. She is a bit narcissistic. Then, I got pregnant with my son. As soon as I told her I was having a boy, suddenly she felt the need to tell me that she was basically forced to marry my dad because she got pregnant as a senior in high school. She miscarried what she thinks was a boy. Still married my dad after graduation. Then reminds me that my sister miscarried a boy. She was about 20 weeks, so they could tell the gender. She then tells me about anyone else she could think of that miscarried a boy and tells me that the women in our family just have trouble carrying boys. Thanks, Mom. I was so stressed and worried the whole pregnancy because of her. My husband already dislikes my family, so I didn't tell him about all this for quite a while. So I just suffered alone. I luckily had a good pregnancy. My son is still healthy several years later. I'm finally realizing how narcissistic and toxic my mom can be. It really takes looking at things from the outside. I feel bad for the sister in this scenario. You already panic and stress about everything that could happen as a new parent. To have someone reminding you constantly of the worst case is just horrific. Exactly. I was infertile and had multiple miscarriages for years. You say congratulations. And love them. Then you go home and sob. You do not need to ruin someone else's pregnancy or new baby. Even after 3 kids, I still get that feeling in my stomach of loss. I don't want any more kids, it's buried deep. The sister sounds like she hasn't healed from her loss, and is lashing out at her little sister because of it. She needs more therapy, because it's clearly not working. So much not the butthole. Julie should not be around Ashley right now. Giving advice to help prevent SIDS is one thing, but what she's doing right now is basically trying to harass Ashley into believing that her daughter is inevitably going to die, while Ashley is already dealing with PP hormones. This is abuse. It needs to stop now. No matter what anyone says to you about this, get Julie out of that house. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.